Okay, hi. My name's Diana. My friends call me Dee. There's been this big movement, this Me Too movement going on lately, and I am just so inspired by um, all these young women and older women, just women from across the board, and men from across the board too, who have come out and talked about abuse they suffered growing up. So it seems to really help people, and when I tell people my story and where I am in my life, and you know they're stunned sometimes by, I guess, how well I'm getting through life, if you could call it getting through life well. I'm doing the best I can. um, but this is a lot. This is scary for me. So anyways, I grew up in a very abusive household. And then later on, that abuse, I sent my father to prison when I was, I think, it was through when I was 8 years old. It was through while I was 8 years old, but I think I was actually 9 when he actually went to prison. So it was a little bit of a trial. Yeah. He was a brilliant person. He had 2 master's degrees, one in English and one in Shakespearean drama. He had tenure at 2 local high schools. He was in World War II. He flew for the Army Air Corps and instructed. He was a Golden Gloves boxer in the Army Air Corps. And yeah, he was a brilliant man on paper and in real life. However, there's a very dark side to him. Sadly, that was only the beginning of my story. When I was young, the first time I tried LSD, I was 11 years old. By the time I was 17, I wasn't even interested in it. I wasn't really ever a big drinker. I could drink at times, but never really liked alcohol like a ton. I've had my experience with drugs. My first true love, my sweetheart since I was a teenager, he passed away when I was 21, and sadly, it was only in the last few months of our 4-year relationship that that we got into some drugs, and on his way to go do something one night, he was in a car accident and never came home. I was only 21 when that happened. By this point, I had been through so much already. I was just kind of lost. I was lost. I was given some very good advice. At that moment, I just needed to kind of numb it out. And this person needed to tell me that, because I knew I was so deep in my feelings that I was sick with pain. I had been hurt by people that I trusted. I had been hurt in life situations. All of these situations I had no control over. I had no control of the car accident that he was in. I had no control over what my father was doing to me. I took control over it, and I sent him to prison. I took control over what I was feeling, and I moved myself away, thanks to the help of my mother. I moved away from here, where I was raised, where now I live again. And I moved away for a long time, and then I came back, and I had many more situations that happened. My mother was very sick, but I did meet a great guy, and I ended up getting married and having 2 beautiful sons. Who my oldest son is on the autism spectrum. People, I guess you'd say what he has is Asperger's, but they don't really call it that anymore. Yeah, that's been an experience. He's 12. He was born 8 weeks early, and it was all pretty intense. just everything up until the point from when I went into early labor and drove myself to the hospital in labor, where I was about 1.5 centimeters dilated at that point. And there was construction on the freeway, of course, so that was an interesting story. Yeah, that was, and then I said, should I go move my car? And they said, sit in the wheelchair, and they realized I was already like dilated and that I had driven myself all the way there by myself, but I didn't know what else to do, and I thought that I was just having Braxton Hicks, and maybe it was just me being overly dramatic as a female. Yeah, that's another thing. So, just so many things. I went through a divorce, and I am great friends with my ex-husband. We are such good friends. He's remarried and has a baby, and we were so close that when their baby was born, I grabbed the boys and raced to the hospital because I wanted them to meet their brand new baby sister. And that's just kind of how I've gone through life. You just get up and you keep going and you keep going. And that's okay. There's times when you are very, very down. There's times when I've been very down. Breakups. My child that I thought was not going to come home. My second child, I was in bed rest for 6 months. I lived upstairs, so I was kind of trapped. There's just been so many things. And although that was a tiny little summary of like a tiny little bit of everything, not of everything, a little bit of a small piece of so much. There's just so much. And so many people are just struggling to get through that. I thought that I would share, and help people. Recently, I had a woman come over and, she needed help getting her son on an IEP so he could get the needs met that he needed for his benefit so he could thrive. And I said, absolutely, come over, no problem, and I mean, some advocates charge so much money for that. I could never afford that before. I can afford it really now. I couldn't afford it now. It's too expensive. But it's worth it. And all the lawyers and everything. And without that, I was able to get my son in a school just for him. A place where he felt safe, where I feel like he's thriving. And it's pretty amazing. So I know I'm nervous. I keep fidgeting because I don't know what to do because I've never done this before. But I'm starting this channel because I'm going to tell my story, and just here it goes, And that's what I'm going to do. And I think I'm going to try to do something like once a week. I don't know if I'll do it more or less. I'm not sure. I've never done this, and I'm nervous as hell. And I really would appreciate it if you guys let me know if this is something I should do. If this is just crazy to do this. I don't know. I'm going to tell you a story that happened when I was 5 years old. Abuse had been going on in my family for many years since I was born, since before I was born, but my own story. I had experienced tons of physical and sexual abuse by the time I was 5 from my father. That started, I think, I don't know when it started. My first memories are around 3, and by 5 there were some very vivid moments, and I will share my stories. But this one is not about a sexual abuse story. This one is about a physical abuse story that I think this would be like hard for some people to believe that this happens, but this happens in families, and people do this to kids. So just, but you can be fine and get through it in life and just be okay. I was late. I live in a small town, a very small town. And this is the late 70s, early 80s, maybe, I would guess I was 5, so anyways, it's very 81 maybe, 80 or 81, I was 5 or 6. Sorry, I'm babbling, this is a heavy story to tell. I was late, and I had gotten dropped off in front of my house where there was no curb. So I got dropped off, and as I got out of the car, another car coming down almost hit me. And it happened to be my friend's mother, also someone who my father had taught in high school, and I will get into that age and everything in another story. However, she almost hit me. She was in her blue station wagon, and her car screeched, and she stopped, and I was getting out of the van, my friend's van, and I stopped, and I was fine. Everybody was okay, and I went inside my house, and my dad said, he saw what happened. And he's sitting at the end of this hallway that leads through the kitchen to the dining room. And I'm sitting there looking at him, sitting on this chair at the end of this big, it was like an oak table. It was my grandmother's table, but this big table, these big chairs. And he's sitting at the table, and he's kind of leaned over in his chair, and he would always do this. And he says, "Come here." And I didn't want to, because I knew I was in trouble for not getting hit by a car, or for almost getting hit by a car, I guess. And I didn't want to. And he said, "Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. Come here." And so I walked up to him, with a lot of apprehension, to say the least. And I got closer. I didn't want to get that close. He said closer. He made sure I was right in front of him. Now, mind you, I was like 5 or 6 years old, tiny. At this point, I stand maybe 5'2". So, okay, hydrate. He got me close, and he looked at me, and then he punched me in the face and knocked me out. I remember his fist coming at me, and then I remember waking up in my bed. My mother had picked up my lifeless body. She carried me downstairs and put me in bed, because she knew if she took me to the hospital, he would go after my brother. And no one had helped her yet when she had tried to get help, so she felt defeated, and she carried her tiny little daughter's body, lifeless, knocked out, from a Golden Gloves boxer. And she put me in bed and covered me up, and I woke up later, and she gave me some dinner, and that was a normal day in our household. So, that story is very real. And these things happen. And I think just as much as these stories will help you, they'll probably help me too. Hydrate. Take a sip of water. And I just want to tell all of you that I love you. And, everything will be okay. As long as you're a good human. This is my cat, Scratch. Scratch, can you say hi? Can you say bye? Bye, guys.